Hey, how you guys doing? Okay. We're going over excuse me. We're going over let me turn on the spectators. We're going over Annie's game, Annie Wong versus Nazi Mackenzie. This was an important game because if Annie lost and Nazi won, it would actually make them equal. But if she drew, then she'd be 1 point ahead. So that's how important it is. Then we're also going to go over Fabiano versus Hikaru Nakamura's game. So let's take a look here and see what we got. We're going to do the Nazi versus Anna. It was a draw, but it was really an interesting game. So let's continue onward. C4 and then E6, because what's happening is, remember what we talked about. Usually when C4 is played, the player that plays that's like an FM, IM, GM, women's GM, all those are women's IM. What it is they're saying to you that I'm here to go for the win. I don't know why it is, but the problem, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, why not E4? Well, this has been analyzed to the, all the way to the max. But remember, if you're at a select club level, it hasn't been analyzed that huge. It's been analyzed on the Grandmaster level to the nth level, as they would say. So this is a playable move, and this is a playable move. But for some reason, this has been analyzed a lot. So that's why they either play C4 or D4. But so Nazi played C4 because the English opening is more of an attacker's opening for white. So Annie played E6, C4, D5. So this is kind of very similar to a French setup if you want to think about it. So D4 would be played, and if Annie wanted to go more towards the French, she could go semi-Slav, and then if Nazi took, then you could have an accelerated Slav. But actually, this is more of kind of like a French line if you want to think about it, with something like that. But you would actually take at that point. Or what you could do is play something like this and then have that happen. And then you come in after like bishop there, you come in, and it's kind of like a French, but it's more of a Slav. So we'll get to that point. D4, and then bishop E7 was played. She really doesn't want to dedicate to one move or the other. It's this. She doesn't want to play here because potentially Nazi could have that involved and she'd have to play there. And then Nazi has a the ability to get some counter play going, like here, and then maybe even shutting off the bishop here, there, and I don't know, something maybe like here. Then the bishop's almost trapped, so then you have kind of like a cool combo, and if that takes, and you've won a piece at that point. So just got to be careful with these lines. So she just wants to basically, Annie wants to just have a solid structure. She doesn't want to go down into any tactics, anything. She's waiting for her opponent to make a mistake, and then at the right moment, she's going to pounce. So takes. And so Nazi has actually accomplished a goal. And the goal is that she has now a two-pawn center, but she really can't emphasize that yet. Because, of course, if she plays that, it would take there, and then you'd have an isolated pawn. So I don't know. So she doesn't really have at the moment a full one, but potentially she could later on after this. This is actually a weakness now, and if Annie plays c6, the knight has a problem getting out. But now that this is open, this allows for more bishop play. So Annie really has a really good bishops that can come out, slice and dice. So it's really odd. It's better for white because of the center potential, but black has good bishops. So bishop f4, knight f6, and then e3. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the London system, slightly without a c-pawn, if you notice. What would happen is the c-pawn would be here, and the knight would be actually here. This knight would be here, and this bishop would be there. So basically knight here, and bishop there would be the London. But it's the pawn would be up here. So that's kind of how it is. So Annie castled. Now she's solid. It's going to be pretty hard for Nazi to break down the her king side because there's a pretty good amount of defense. And Annie plays c6, so this is solid. White has an advantage though because more piece development. Like this bishop is really strong along here. Ah, come on, don't lag me now. Okay. This is really strong bishop. This is a really strong bishop. The knight's been developed, but it really has no points of entry. So that's kind of what this kind of what it is here. And the computer says h6, h3. I could see that it stops the bishop and knight infiltration, but it also gives black a tempo to develop a piece though too. So c6 was played, queen c2. I've had this played on me before. What you can do is there's a couple lines that you can play. I've actually played this line here, bishop to e6. He potentially has the knight to f3. You have knight bd2. He might castle. He's going to castle. And then now you have to decide what do you want to do here. There's h6 right now, which is a really good idea. There's bishop to g4. There's knight g4. There's potentially, I've played b5 and then a5. It started a queenside attack because really the king side's kind of locked down right now. So, or you could play, you have h, you have that, and you have that. And even potentially you have queen b6, eyeing that pawn. So there's a lot of play. So Annie chose bishop, knight bd7. Well, this also allows for an idea too that later on, if Annie wanted to, she can play, excuse me, b6, one second. Excuse me. b6, a5, and then bishop to a6. And that gets rid of Nazi's really good bishop. And it also expands on the queen side. So potentially that's an idea. But at that point, you kind of weaken your light squares. So you have to decide, is that what you want? Knight f3. Rook e8. Now this pins the pawn here. So potentially, if you could get a knight here, you can snap this off if this bishop was up here. If this bishop was up here, and we'll say we'll say this happened. Watch. Okay, let's just say I'm just gonna play a couple bad moves. I'm gonna play a bad move for white. You actually win a piece here because this can't be taken. So that I just wanted to show you that, and we're going to delete that because those were bad moves. I just wanted to show you how important this rook move kind of was. Come on, don't lag me, don't lag on me now. Come on, don't lag on me now. Come on, come on. Sometimes Firefox, for some reason, doesn't respond, so it takes a second. So you just got to bear with my Firefox for some reason. It's odd. Okay, there we go. Thank you, thank you. Oh, come on. No, not again. What is going on? Maybe it's because I have this here. Yikes. It's not liking that, so I'll get rid of that. Come on. Continue. That's different. Very peculiar. Just please bear with me here. I don't know what's actually going on here. Haven't had this happen before. Excuse me. Let's see. Come on. Come on. Come on. We'll see if I, okay. That was insane there. I'll get that off the board as quick as possible. That was, wow. Thank you for your patience on that. Snap. But that's why the rook on e8 is strong, because of the pin. So h3 was played. Knight h8 was played here. Come on. Well, see, the whole idea about this structure, while my computer's kind of having a switch, is the reason she's bringing her rook to e8 is this. She wants to eye the e8 pawn, e8 file. She also wants, like what we talked about, potentially to fianchetto her light square bishop with b6, bishop b7. Then at the right moment, she could play c5, and that would take advantage of some queenside attack. So that's kind of the potentially the idea there. Let me, I'm gonna have to, I'll probably have to pull up Twitch again. Just hold on, guys. Sorry about this. I may have to actually reset my internet on, or kind of pull out of this and kind of restart my Firefox. So if it comes back on, I'm going to have to do that. I have no idea why it's having such a sitch. I'm just going to have to exit out. And then exit out of this. And what we'll do is I'll put on AFK for a sec, guys, after this exits out. I'll go pull up the files again, and we'll get started. You can't let these small little things you know, get you down. Remember that. They're just small little things that cause sometimes you feel like, oh, yeah, just give me a sec. Boy, my computer is not wanting to work. Yeah, close tabs. Boy, it's being very rebellious, so hold on, my friends. I'm going to pull up my this. I have to AFK for just a second. If it's doing okay here, man, this is even having a hiccup here. Wonder what's going on with the internet for some reason. Is this responding at all? Okay. Snikes. Maybe it's my Norton in the background. Just hold on, guys. I'll potentially just click that off. Okay. I appreciate your patience with AFK. Okay, I have to pull up my Firefox real quick. I have to get those games put back in. For some reason, there was a sitch on that. It might have been maybe an update that Firefox had to put through the system. I have no idea. Okay. So just bear with me. We will get this taken care of, so do not worry one bit, okay? Let's get this taken care of here. Maybe it has something to do with this one, so let's see if this is the sitch here. So we're almost done. We'll get those two games. We'll get the puzzles. We'll get the thing for you guys to to actually work on, and then we'll get working. I'm having to just re-update all the games, so it's just going to give me a second. And now we're back. Thank you for your patience on that. Computers are very fidgety, and so sometimes you just gotta work with it. We'll get back. We'll get to that one part. Let me see. Where is that? Hold on. Ah, perfect. Okay. Back to our sitch. Okay. Remember, this is she wants to potentially play b6, Annie, b7, potentially at the right. Sorry, b6, bishop b7, c5, and at the right moment, crunch the center if Annie doesn't castle. So, not Annie, sorry, Nazi. h3 was played by Nazi, and Annie played knight f8, because what she knows is that Nazi is potentially going to castle kingside, and if she doesn't and castle queenside, which she did in the game, she's going to have her knights either on e6 or g6. And feel free to put in any comments that you have about the games. I'm more than welcome. I'm more than happy to go over any of your ideas that you have on this. We'll even go back and go over ideas if you have questions. So Nazi castle queenside, which she wants to go for a storm on the king side, but I don't know if that was such a wise idea, because it's just the king's pretty wide open, and Annie could potentially go b5, a5, a4, b4, and then storm. So kind of a little interesting. She plays knight at a5, which is a idea. Nazi plays a prophylactic move of king b1, which guards the a2 pawn, also gets it off of the file, but it does do one thing that is kind of a sensitive point. It does put the queen on a diagonal that could be pinned to the king. At this moment, it can't be emphasized, but just be on guard when you have a queen like this. Just be careful that you have enough defenders so that bishop doesn't end up here and you feeling very foolish that you moved your king. You know what I mean? So just be careful. That's what I'm trying to say. And if you have any ideas like what I just said, maybe, kind of not right or anything, just put in there. We'll go over it. We'll talk about it. So just feel free to put your thoughts in, just as long as they're nice and they apply to chess, because that's why we're here, is to help the chess community and use the ability that the Lord has given us. Our mind is very an important area that He has given us, so we need to do that. We have to use it for His glory. Okay, so b4, rook c1. Yikes. Knight e4. Bishop takes, d takes. This kind of makes Nazi feel a little bit more relieved, because this file is now, this diagonal is now closed by Annie's pawn. So if you think about it, this queen is okay. This king's also okay, because the queen can move now without any fear of a check landing here. Knight d2 is played by Nazi, and that's actually a really good move. Bishop e6 was played, which is not a bad move, because what she's wanting to do is take advantage of if she can take the knight on c3 and then checkmate. But b3 was played, and I don't really agree with Annie's idea of queen d8. I don't like that idea. I don't approve of that, because what you can do is just drop your knight back, your queen back to a6, and then potentially go for this line, and you're still also attacking here. It's very equal. It's an equal position. It's actually slightly better for black, in my opinion, because if this ever happened, you then can bring your knight in and start attacking. But she's young, and she doesn't want to risk right now, and so sometimes it's better to just hold the position and wait for your opponent to make a slight inaccuracy and then take advantage of that, and then just keep sharpening that, keep irritating that advantage until you win. And so that's kind of why after b5, b3 is she goes back to d8. But the problem is, at this moment, Nazi could actually take the pawn, and this is an idea for an attack as well. But this actually helps white because g5 is played. Then you go, I'm sorry, g4 is played, a5. Knight goes back to stop here. Bishop takes, and potentially b5. The knight moves. I do like. I know this sounds really odd. I like b4, but the only sitch is that. So it's just too soon to play b4. So, because I just wanna totally rip this open, but you really can't yet. So, but potentially you could play queen, and then at the right time play b4. But then you have a fork, and so you just have to be careful. So h d1. Now she's trying to bring every piece into the fight. But the one thing that I see that's a problem for Nazi is that she's abandoning the king side attack. She's focusing fully on Annie's threats on the queen side, which then gives Annie time to attack. So the bishop takes first, takes the knight. The queen takes b6. Now this is I'm not sure if that's actually the best move in this scenario. I kind of like now the queen to d5 is an idea, and if played here, you actually then can retreat your queen back, and it's kind of awkwardly placed. It does allow for an attack, so I'm not sure if this is beneficial. It's equal for white, for black, but queen takes, queen b6, knight a5, which is a question mark in my opinion, because that allows Annie's bringing the pieces over, but I don't know. There might be a better way of actually going about it, like here, here, and there. If that happens, then you go here, and then if this happens here, you go in there. Now you have the queen under fire. Then you bring the rook over. Now you're the one that's eyeing the attack. The bishop has to come back. Queen comes. Then at this moment, now as you might feel that taking's an interesting idea, but I don't like that idea. Now she's gonna have to, if it was Nazi, would have to kind of start the attack. But this is a really good move for black, because now you're eyeing this. You have your pieces developed right, and even if the pawns start, there's really no pieces on the king side to cause any misery to you. So So a5 was played, knight bd7, b3, which is kind of questionable in my opinion. I don't know if you want to weaken your king, especially when you have this massive attack. Ani could actually play here and then infiltrate in. So if she plays back there, then you have that. Now that's weak, that's weak, and potentially there, that's weak. So the dark squares are now weak. And so yeah, yes, you're saying, but doesn't she have a dark square? Doesn't Nazi have a dark square bishop? Yeah, but what happens if it gets taken? Now these squares are weak, and two pawns are on light squares. A knight in a close game is slightly better, so I guess you can say that she's okay. A6 is played for Annie. The queen goes to b4. Knight goes to b6, which is not a bad move. G3 is played. Rook a8. Rook c5. And this is a very interesting move. I don't know if that's the best, because I guess you could try, well, yeah, you can't take there. So the queen would have to come back here, so we have to get rid of that, delete that. And you could come back. Now you have that, you have that, you have a potential over here and up and then over. So very interesting for sure. d7, bishop goes to d5, queen e1, knight c8. And they actually kind of repeat moves here. And the computer doesn't really like that idea. It likes that, but what if he can't actually play there? And then if the knight goes there, potentially you can actually take and then play your knight in. And remember, you have a knight versus a bishop in a closed game, so black is better slightly because of the closed position. But what she decided was just to go for a draw, and it's just beneficial sometimes just to say, you know what, I'm going to be a full point up, because Nazi had to win this to keep up with Annie. If Annie would have lost and Nazi would have won, they would have been tied. But now, because there's a tie, Annie is 1 point up with 2 games to go. So she can even lose a game and potentially still go into a playoff. But I think she'll draw again, and I think that's what will happen. So now we're going to move to Fabiano versus Hikaru Nakamura. Fabi's white, and Hikaru is Naka is black. Okay, now I need a drink of water and we'll get started. Okay. E4 for Fabi, E5, which is kind of interesting. They were saying that this is more of a drawish line because of how analyzed E4 is, like what we talked about. Knight F3, Knight C4, Bishop B5, Knight F6, D3, and Knight C5, and E3. This is Ruy Lopez. And so what happened is, hey, how you doing? what happens is the c3 is for a purpose that potentially if this is played, and if that's played and the this pawn was on c2, the bishop would have to retreat back to b3, and then the knight would come into a5 attacking the bishop. But because now there's a c2 spot, Fabi can actually retreat to c2, and then at the right moment play d4 and get a very strong center. So if you're interested in the kind of Ruy Lopez, maybe the closed kind of line or the Berlin line, this is kind of you have to remember c3. Otherwise, you're going to lose your light square bishop for a knight, and I think it's still okay, but I'm not sure if it's beneficial the long run. You kind of want to keep that light square bishop on the board because it really helps with a center thrust at the correct moment. But that because these players are super grandmasters, they're constantly getting these ideas. So that's why it's kind of fun to watch Nazi versus Annie. They're good players, and you get to kind of see how the top play. But then it's cool to also go to the supers and see how the supers play as well, and you kind of can get a mix of ideas. You can take the top players, and then you can take the super grandmasters, and you can combine their ideas and potentially make your own kind of way of analyzing the position. So Fabi castles, and by the way, Fabi has to. He was equal with before Sam Shakelin won. They were actually equal in the U.S. Championship. So if Sam actually wins, which he did today, excuse me, what happened is Fabi drew and Sam won. So Sam is now a half a pawn up. So that's kind of why Fabi tried to push kind of in this game for a win. So, but it's like two supers, clashing. It's so cool to watch this game. They thought so deep. E8 was played, rook e8. Knight bd2. There's a6, and potentially this could be played, and then like what we talked about, you come back and Nakamura could say that he has queenside space, but Fabi could say that yeah, you have queenside space, but I have a potential for an attack in the center. So who's better here? It all depends upon play at that point. But Fabi wants to take, and what happens? Bobby used to play the Ruy Lopez like this, and this structure here kind of benefits white in an endgame. Well, it's not kinda, it does, because white has a better pawn chain, if you notice, than black, because black has this kind of odd pawn chain. White has one pawn island, and of course, if you guys have any questions about pawn islands, I'm more than happy to answer. When you have like two pawn islands, it's harder to guard if there's a king versus king, because it goes back to the theory of two weaknesses. So that's kind of why Fabi traded, was to provoke two pawn islands for Nakamura. So knight c4 was played, and that takes scope on this pawn. Now the pawn that was here can't really advance to protect the e5 pawn, so this knight is double attacking. So what's going to have to happen is a piece is going to have to drop back to actually protect the pawn on e5, and what Fabi's doing now is he wants to try to he's pinning the knight to the queen, which makes this knight kind of a little bit of a sitch, because now Fabi could actually play d4, and the knight really can't take this pawn. He can't at all, because if he did, of course, he'd lose the queen. So this would allow a center bind for Fabi. b5 was played, and so what Naka is trying to do is he's got a majority on the queen side, because I sometimes even consider this, because double pawns like this aren't a weakness until that one's gone. Then these two become problem pieces. If this pawn's gone, then these are slightly weak, but not if they can't be emphasized, for attack. You can actually sometimes use this in an end game for victory. Jeremy Stillman has a book about how sometimes double pawns like this, if it just comes to a king versus these pawns versus a lone king, potentially is winning. It depends. So what happens is the knight retreats back. Hey, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. So knight e3 is a potential idea, and then f5, knight f5 for Fabi to kind of maybe trade off going to opposite colored bishop and potentially go to a draw. But this also allows for maybe rerouting this way. This knight's kind of not very attractive. He's probably going to have to go rook e1, knight f1, and then knight to g3 to really have any power for this knight here. So queen e7 is played, knight h4, and now this is an interesting idea. Potentially knight to f5, but I don't know if that's wise as well. It kind of makes the kingside pawns awkward a little bit. So e3 is played, so h to f, which now, because this is here, he does now have a reason to keep the knight on e3, so this is kind of fortified if you want to think about it. You potentially could play, if you're kind of scared about it, g6, but then that weakens that, and it's like what did I actually do here? Is that beneficial? Could I really do this and kind of hold? Because really there's no exit point. Well, I guess there could be. You could play f4, and then if he tries maybe to get these pawns going, you might have h3, and then maybe if worst comes to worst, you have a exit point on g4, because then there's enough defenders to defend your knight. But that's if worst comes to worst. And the bishop retreats back to guard here, because the queen's wanting to come out as well, and then you have a potential checkmate, and that would not be fun. So everything's eyeing the g pawn. You can even rip it open like this and have a queen here and over. So there's a lot of attack. f4 is played. So if that gets taken, now we get a rook in play, and potentially you have rook there, queen here, rook here, queen there, and then you have that eyed after that's taken. So you have a lot of, with f4 there's a lot of play. It also makes this queen side look very silly because of how the structure of the pawns are. Knight bd7, not bd7, sorry, knight d7, because there's only one knight, there's not two knights. G3 was played. I'm not sure if I like that. Excuse me. Boy, I don't know if F3. I kind of like F3. Let's see if that gets played. Potentially, then you have takes, and I think white's slightly better, so I kind of prefer. He plays there. I don't. This it says this is good. I was also thinking that as secondary. So. And that does take control of the center, but it gives it weakens the c4. But there is a b3 pawn push to hold that, so it's equal. And I don't know if Fabi wants an equal position at this point. G3, and I think what he wants, if Nakamura takes, he can actually play rook and then play over here, play here, you know. So F3 is played. F5 now. Now he's locking down the king side, but remember, that's a weak point now. D3 is weak. It has to be defended by pieces. So rook D1, and if potentially you can get two rooks, or potentially you get a rook here, then a queen there, that's got to be defended, because otherwise this chain disintegrates. Queen F7. Bishop goes to H4. Bishop's going to B6, which is eyeing the attack here, so that's actually a really good move. Queen E2. This is kind of an interesting move. I was thinking something like maybe potentially Queen G5, and I don't know how. I guess you could play here. I guess he did play the correct line then, but this benefits blacks. It's equal. Now Naka's getting the rooks to their optimum spot, eyeing the D3 pawn. Knight H1, rook D1, rook D6, like what we were talking about. Knight F3, guarding. Rook E D8, rook D1, G4, kind of trying to get some pressure. Now Naka locks it down. You don't want to play that because that weakens this here. So he would take back, and you then, I guess, could potentially go for attack, but I don't know. So he just retreats his queen back to his bishop back to G3. Bishop goes to A6. Preparing to play B4 with more attack on D2, D3. So A D8, B4. C4 is played. B3, A3, because if you take here, then you have that, and you're in a big problem at that point because you have a powerful knight. So you kind of at this point have to go A3. Rook B, D7, Queen E1, Knight B7, Knight H1, Queen E2, Rook goes to D4, Bishop goes to E1, sorry, and then Fabi's going to try to somehow get this going and get this under fire, but I think he's fine so far. Queen goes to D2, G2 so that there's no checks along the back rank. Also, this holds the H2 pawn. Queen D8, H3. So everything's cemented. H1. Potentially, there's really no way to, you have to be careful of something like this happening. So just remember that this type of a sack potentially could happen. So C5. Now the knight's hitting the rook. C1. This was the move that was really kind of not liked. It really set up for a problem. Thank you for patience about me drinking water. Okay, that takes, now that removes the defender of here, so there's actually 3 attackers at this point versus only 2. Queen takes, now there's only 1. And this is what they were talking about in a line. And I believe, let me see. Yeah, that's played to hold this line here. Queen goes to E8. Knight comes back, eyeing this pawn. And the bishop takes, pawn takes, and what would have to happen, I believe that this is actually winning for black because black has the open file. White has more weaknesses, so I don't know, and that's what Fabi said, but when Naka played C5, he wants to make sure that he has a stranglehold before he moves in. So that's kind of what that. And then the queen moved. Rook takes, D takes, D takes, A takes, and bishop takes the pawn. So this was an idea of takes. If queen takes here, and so you'd win a rook. So Fabi was going to kind of trade the position to kind of get this type of setup and then retreat back, and potentially something like this to hold. It was very sketchy a little bit. So King F2 was played, kind of to get out of this pin. Queen D7, Rook E1, Rook D7, D6. Rook comes over and guards the pawn now. Queen C3, C6. Rook goes to E1. And potentially you have and the knight would take the pawn, and then you have this here, and Naka's actually winning because this could be played and the bishop would have to take, the knight takes, and he's got these 2 passers and really active pieces. So this would actually have been winning for Nakamura, but he didn't see it and went rook to E1. Fabi went H4, H6, H takes, G6, H8, G6, and King G3. This move right here cemented an idea of a potential infiltration into here. He even missed the move again, which was kind of questionable. He was shaking his head going, I can't believe I missed that. Yeah, I know how that feels. Trust me, trust me. I know how, when you kind of, miss an idea and then you're like, you get really upset with yourself. You can't do that. That throws you off. You have to forgive yourself. Remember, like what we talked about, kind of close your eyes, breathe, believe that the Lord could kind of get your mind directed back down, and that you could find the correct line that you need. And so we all have to work on that. We all have our I guess areas of work. We're not perfect. Thankfully there was one who was perfect, so we'll leave with that. But that wasn't played, so he played D7, sorry, I was looking at it from Weiss point. Queen H2, and Nakamura can't allow this to come in, because then white is but it's still drawn, I guess. So there's still a drawn position even after this. So he has to actually go back. They go back, 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 and then back, and they agreed to a draw. Yeah. So that's what was those were the two games that were really I guess critical. There was one, Sam Shankland. It was a good game. And so it was kind of, I guess it didn't, it's not that it wasn't, I didn't like it or anything. It's not that it's bad. It was an okay game. But this had more of a solidification of ideas and games. Sam plays good too, as well. But we have to remember that we want to learn the wholeness of the board. And Nakamura and Fabiano, man, do they play as they call lightning clashes. It's like the Titans clashing, and there's like a lightning in the clouds. That's why I like going over their games. I also like other players' games as well, but when those two play, man, you get some really good games. So. And the reason I did Annie and Nazi is that was a critical game for the women's part of the U.S. Championship. And so Annie has 2 more games left. If she can draw or win some of them, maybe win both of them, she becomes the U.S. Champion, women's champion. So that's cool. Hopefully she does. That'll open a lot of scholarship things up for her to go to college. And you know what? It's good as well for young kids to also get into it too. It'll fire up our youngsters to get in. So let's get on to our puzzles now, and let's build up our rating and have some fun. Okay, it's now our turn to make decisions, and as the Magic School Bus says, you have to actually get your fingers dirty, actually get down in there, get working. That's what I mean. So we have to take a look at this, and it's our turn to get into chess. We've looked at everybody else's, now it's ours. I love puzzles. I guess you guys could tell. Let me see here. What's the drawback to this move here? Okay, Queen D6 to E5. So the queen took the knight. If we took back, the rook would actually come down, and he'd be up a whole piece at this point. One sec, let me get a drink of water. Hold on. Alright. My throat's better now. Sometimes it gets dry when I talk for a while. So let's see here. The queen's under fire, so that actually kind of gives us a move to go over. Okay. We can bail out into a equal position potentially with No, that's not a good move because then the queen can actually infiltrate. And there's always a draw here. And worst comes to worst, takes. So if we take here, bishop takes. Our structure is not as good as our opponent's. So it's opposite color bishop, which would actually end up a draw anyways in an endgame. So there has to be something more that we are looking towards. Potentially there's a queen to f3. That is an interesting idea. Or maybe we there's queen f2, sorry, queen f2 with f7 potential idea. It gets off this and threatens a check and winning a piece, and also keeping these two pieces on pre. Potentially we have that. The queen slides in here. We infiltrate there. Takes here. Queen infiltrates in. Our queen comes back there. Takes, and then the bishop takes and they're up a pawn. But if we play queen f2, guys, it guards e3, g3, which is black's point, so that there could be if need be, a perpetual back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it also keeps, like what we talked about, I think I already said, these two pieces are on pre, which means they're attacking. So if we played here, and let's say the queen retreated back, we do have queen takes pawn. Queen takes f7. The king slides over. We could actually play king g2. And if he tries to come up here, we have check. The queen would have to come back here. We take, that'd be check. The bishop would intercept, that'd be checkmate. Because the queen guards these squares, so the king wouldn't be able to retreat out. What do you guys think? Do you like queen to f2? I believe queen f2 is the move. What do you think? So let's give it a shot. Oh, rats. Oh. Oh, we win. Oh, because if he comes down here. Oh. Yeah. I didn't think about that. If he took there, that would happen. I guess I was hoping that that would be an idea, but I guess that's drawn, isn't it? It's actually okay. Snap, I can't believe I didn't. That's so simple. Drat. Well, we have to shake it off, and get back on our tactics trail. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, king f7. You guys play rook e7, If we take, then he can take there with a discovery check. When we move back, he takes a rook. And I believe he'd be up exchange at that point. So I'm not sure if we could actually do that. If we played king h7, what could he play here? Oh, maybe he could double up. He might be able to double up his rooks and then take scope on that. But then we have rook takes, king there. That'd be checkmate. So here, check, because that's covered, that's covered, that's covered. Only moves up here, and then you have mate. So this looks the best. There we go. There's 7. I'll leave this with you guys for a sec. I'll be right back. Okay, thinking knight to h3. So, okay. That is interesting. Let's take a look at that economy. So knight h3. Okay, king goes to, well, let's say he takes. Well, then we can actually take there. So we have actually 2 takes. So if we play here, takes there, there, we have that take. Here, takes there. I believe probably taking there after that is best. because that cuts that off. But then the rook can move. Well, then we have knight takes pawn, and then we have infiltration of the queen. So what's the drawback to that move? Let me see here. We potentially could win a, so if he takes there, pawn takes, bishop takes, rook takes. Could play bishop takes, knight, pawn takes. He's forking these two pieces, so that's kind of his ideas, potentially to get this knight traded off. So this once controlled here, so that's not what we want, but the queen's really blocked, so we have to take a consideration on that. And I believe that potentially that idea is really strong. He may just move rather than take, because that would be a bad move for him if he did, because then that pins the knight to the queen. So his idea of taking there wouldn't be plausible. I think we had this one before, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think if we had this one before. Let's see here. Trying to see if knight takes here isn't an idea. Then if pawn takes knight, we then have knight check if king moves over. Then we can actually play knight there. We win a rook in that scenario, so potentially if he moves here, we actually win a rook. Trying to see if there's anything else that we can use. That idea is very flexible to this idea here. So that's why I think the knight here is important. I'm trying to see if are we missing anything. I don't really see anything better than that. I'm trying to see if there's any other lines, there's nothing that looks better than that. So I agree with you on this line here. And then now we can actually take there and you win a rook. So yeah, that was a good line. Good find there, Economy. And good find there, guys. Keep up the good work. Let's see here. This move really is interesting. It surrendered the whole back rank, so it's got two connectors, so that this is kind of not fun. We potentially have that and then come over in there, so trying to see if that's not the idea. That's really the only spot that I see that he surrendered, which was the back rank, because this is an important point. We then have all this, and the king has really only one point to go to, which is there. At that point we could check, and if he comes back we check here, and if he comes back there, well, we can just keep our rook here. If he tries to trade, we have a knight, so and the knight guards that, and the king infiltrates in. So potentially this is that's good for us. So here, here, there, 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 there. King infiltrates in here, and I believe we more likely win because he doesn't have enough time to queen his pawn. And if need be, we always could retreat our knight back to guard that point. I'm liking rook a1. What do you guys think? Do you guys like rook a1? It's kind of a prophylactic idea. There's really the only point that he has at this is rook g5 at that point. Then we have that, and if he comes up here, we have the same checking idea that we had before, and I believe that actually wins. What do you guys think? Rook a1. There's either rook a1 or h6, but I think h6 is too passive. It does lock everything down, but that gives the rook time to actually come back and guard the first rank with that rook, so I'm sure that it's that. But I want to see what you guys think. Do you guys are you guys on board with that? Rook a rook a1. Okay, rook a1. But if we play here, we have to remember that that blocks this our infiltration point there. So we got to see that if we played here, it controls this whole thing here, and the king doesn't have these points to go to. So the king wouldn't have any of these, and the only spot that he could go to is here. I like that idea. Yeah. And then now I believe it's that there that would actually win, if I'm not mistaken. Trying to see, is there anything, because if he takes here, we can actually take there. If he moves here, we then have knight check with the king, and so if he takes there, which potentially he probably would have to. Yeah. So I'm not, boy, this is a, I guess you're all in here, huh? At this point, you're kind of going to have to actually do that. Yeah. Oh, drat. So what are we missing here? Not sure. Oh, snap. So that's the solution. Okay, why doesn't that work? Okay, because he takes here. Then he takes there. You take here, and if he takes there, I think he has enough to draw Drat. I forgot about yeah, I had the right idea, but that was the wrong plan. That was my fault there. I did not see the king there. Yeah, I didn't see the king there. That was me. Snap. Had the right calculation, but wrong spot. I didn't even calculate the king going there. Drat. Okay. Oh, this is different. Let's see here. Okay. No, you're fine. You were right though about the king move. You were right about the king move. So that's one thing I gotta say. It's just I needed to move my rook and then do the king move. It's like I didn't see that attack there, but he'd have to stay there like what you're saying. Then I could push the pawn, draw the king away, and that's an area I need to work on too. Let's see here. Okay, here. Trying to see, there has to be kind of an idea why he's sacking the bishop though. So here. Ooh, here. There. Interesting. He's trying to go for the trap of my queen. And then when our king goes back, rook comes over. Or sorry, this rook comes over, my bad. Okay, so here, here, back, over. Our queen there. But I don't see any way they can trap our queen. I don't see any queen traps at all. So I think we can take the bishop without any fear of our queen getting trapped, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can actually take. And we have to decide, do we come back here? We go back. We're actually trapped at that point. because if we come back here, we're trapped because that's taken, that's taken. So that point's taken, that point's taken, that point's taken, that's taken, that's taken, that's taken. Guess we'd have to go there, and then when bishop takes, knight takes. That's crazy, huh? So, and that. We don't want to have any chance of that happening. So potentially that there, and then he could actually play rook takes here, here, and it takes. I really don't want to keep my king on the same diagonal as this bishop, so. Why doesn't the other moves work? What am I missing here? Okay. Oh, snap. That saves our queen. Wow. That's impressive there. That's a subtle move right there. I mean, wow. Whoa. For sure that's interesting. Let's see here. Should have seen the drawback to that check move. I don't want to react. We don't want to react to our opponent's ideas, so we have to see what the drawback to that is. This one seems pretty straightforward. So if we play here, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, check. So here, he retreats back. And he saves the bishop. We actually win a rook at that point then. Because then he goes there and there. Yeah. I think it's just straightforward there because the bishop can't really save because we have a double attack on the pawn. I mean on the, excuse me, on the rook. Try to see, is there any... That's what this draw, that's the drawback to this move. It open an attack on this rook. Double attack. Otherwise, if it was here and it was fortified, we wouldn't have the ability to do this double attack idea with the... And then it's also hanging, so there's two attacks going at the same time. Yeah. Oh, wow. Wowzers. What am I missing? That's interesting. Oh, okay. We lose. Oh man, we lose a piece after that. That was silly of me. I should have thought that through. Then there's a double attack. Oh, sorry, over here. Then you take. Okay, that was my fault there. That was not a very good move. That's interesting. Here, there, there. If he moves there, we win a rook, so he's not going to move there. So after that. If he plays here, we actually could play rook takes. What are we missing here? Let's see here. Do you guys see any ideas here? Like maybe bishop takes, pawn takes. And if takes here, if he pushes up, actually can't push up, he might play there. Then the rook takes, check. That's all I can see is actually that. Because if he takes here, then we play there. And if he plays here, that's actually an error on his part, because then you take, he takes, becomes a queen, then you take. But if he doesn't take, and let's say he plays something like that, takes, and it's mate. So I'll do one more, guys, and we'll see what we got here. We'll get back in this, not to worry. We're in it to win it. So what are we missing here? So if we play check here, he plays there. Then we have to go back, and I don't know if that's right. So here, back. Potentially maybe it's that. And if he takes here, so here we win the knight. So here, snap, this is a difficult one. But I agree with you. But what happens though if he plays f3 though? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're right. We win a rook, don't we? Yeah, you're right on that. Yeah, that makes sense. Then we take the rook. Yeah. Wow, we could do one more. Good find there. Man, I don't know why I didn't think that. I thought he can push, but then you were right on that, guys, because he has to go back after that. Because the bishop covers that, then you could snap off the rook. Even if you lose the bishop, you get another rook. So it's like win-win, right? We had the right idea. So let's see here. We'll do one more, because I think I have enough time for that. I have enough energy for that too, because I'm getting a little tired. Try to stay focused for one more. We can't move this knight because of that. So we have to keep that on the table. So we potentially have rook g3. That does that does double attack that. And if he can't play there at that point because he'll lose the queen. So rook g3 potentially is an idea. But there is h5. Then we have h3. And he can't retreat out because if he does, he loses the queen. So what do you guys think? Rook g3. I'm trying. That looks like an interesting idea. It kind of looks like. Otherwise, we have potentially queen to e7. I mean bishop e7, but he could just move his rook back, attacking our bishop, and we've accomplished nothing. And as well, if you notice, the rook did one thing that was a problem for the queen. If the rook was back here and we played here, the queen potentially could, let me see, move. Could it move? Let's see if it was back there. Oh yeah, the queen would have moved. That's right. That's silly of me. What's interesting is the queen potentially could have done something different. Like if the rook was here, the knight could have actually came here and protected that rook. If this was to happen, then we could move the queen over here, and it would still be okay. Because this knight then would have the ability to move because the knight would protect the queen there when the rook was here. So that's the drawback to that rook, is the knight can't go here anymore to protect this knight. So rook g3 is what do you think, guys? Rook g3? Because I'm just going to do this one, then I'm going to log. I want to make sure we get this right, though. And he can't even save himself with knight takes f5, because we take there and bishop queen takes, and then we take with our queen and we got him. So what do you guys think? Rook g3. What do you think? Rook g3. What do you think, Economy? What do you think, bot? B-O-T. T. What do you think? Do you like that idea too? Huh? What do you guys think? Do you want to go with it? I'll give you guys a little bit of time to think about it, because if I'm missing something, I want to make sure we get it. What you think? Okay, I've calculated it that if we go here, if he takes here, we win. Here, there, he can't move there. So if we go here, if he moves there, we push up, and he can't move. He potentially can move his queen there, but then we win the knight. We can take with our queen at that point. No, we can't take. We can take with the pawn. So here, 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 queen there, and then we take the knight with the pawn. I'm pretty sure that's the move. Yeah. Good find there, guys. Okay. Well, with that, guys, I have to log. I appreciate that you all came on and helped. We're getting there. We're getting back to where we need to be. We're back up to 1341. So, I want to also show you the line that if he would have played here, we would have played here, and if he would have moved his queen over, actually not queen over there, sorry, queen up here. Queen up there, then we take there, and if he takes here, we then can just move our king over. We've won a piece, and we're still good. We can actually take knight to e7. I see what you're saying, yeah. That is an interesting idea. That's an idea. And then I was looking at, if he hadn't have played here, I'll show you. If he hadn't moved his rook and he moved his knight there, guys, I can't move for some reason. It won't allow me to move his piece. But if he would have moved here, it would have freed up a lot of the problem, because then he could have just moved his queen out of the way, and the knight would have protected the queen. And if we tried to take, we wouldn't be able to, because the queen guards that. So that was the problem with the rook move. It blocked the spot where the knight wanted to be, if you're wondering for the drawback. And then that would happen, and then we'd win and then queen takes, and we'd be up I think a whole rook at that point. So okay, thank you guys. Well, you know what, keep studying, keep doing good, and remember, you're always welcome on Chess Cruncher TV to talk if you want to. There's no wrong question. We'll go over it. If we go over games, like we go over games now, if you have any questions about that, just put in. We'll go over the moves. Even in the game, if maybe I may be missing something, I'm always willing to learn and to get better, because we got to use the mind that the Lord's given us. So that's the one thing. And remember, always learn from your wins, your losses, and your draws. That's the whole thing. It's not a loss if you learn from it. There's always a plan in the position. We just have to find the drawback to the move, and the plan is there. Okay, remember, always, if you get kind of upset, guys, like, and you get frustrated, my teacher used to just get up from the table if it's over the board, and walk for a little bit and get his mind right. Then he came back and played. So whatever, sometimes just get up if you can't see it over the board and just walk around. The blood will go to your body and you'll start to think better. And remember, there's always a plan in the position, just got to find it. And remember that the U.S. championship for the women's and the men's championship is going on right now. There's 2 more left, so if you guys want to log on, there's 2 more days left until it's over, and then we find out who the champion is. So, as Wesley So says, serve the Lord Jesus. As I say, God bless, and I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed night, evening, or morning, and I'll be back on tomorrow. So, Lord willing, I will. And always keep pushing forward. Okay, remember that. Never give up and keep studying. Have a blessed, be blessed, and I'll be back tomorrow. Bye bye, guys.